Well, finally, on Friday, after a fourth try, it seemed the fight over FISA was over in the U.S. House of Representatives. A roiling Republican roller coaster of debate pulled into the station of a yes vote on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. But thanks to a late move by Florida's Anna Luna, a procedural motion, the House could be forced to vote again if it's adopted. Congressman Tom McClintock of Elk Grove, who spent part of last week calling for severe sanctions like the stripping of committee assignments for some fellow Republicans who were kind of standing in the way of the vote process. With me now live to talk about where we are now with all of this. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Sansari.
We planned to have this chat last week, and of course that was before Iran decided to attack Israel over the weekend in response to a suspected Israeli strike on an Iranian diplomatic complex in Syria from earlier this month. So I have to start there and ask you, as of now, President Biden has said the U.S. will not participate in any offensive action against Iran. What should America be doing with all of this right now?
It ought to be sending all of the material support that Israel needs to defend itself. That should be non-negotiable in the Congress. If we're going to stand by Israel, we need to stand by them in this hour of threat. I do believe the president is right. The United States should not directly attack Iran. Iran has not directly attacked us, and to do so would require a congressional declaration.
The fight for more funding for Israel and whether or not it should be tied to war funding for Ukraine and help for Taiwan has been an intense debate in your chamber. Many in your party very against it. And this new devastating wrinkle with Iran complicates the situation really even more. There are going to be some more talks later this afternoon about this?
Actually, I don't think it complicates it. I think it clarifies it. We have been very late in getting additional military assistance to Israel and to Ukraine. And I understand the budget concerns that are involved. But as Ronald Reagan once said, defense is not a budget issue. You spend what you need to spend to defend your country. This is defense dollars one step removed from our country. I would like it to remain one step removed. And for that to happen, Israel and Ukraine must prevail. And to do so, they're going to require our material support. So I think this clarifies the issue. I think it adds urgency to it. I think it's inexcusable that Congress has delayed so long. And hopefully later today, we'll see that error corrected.
All righty, turning back now to FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which some say is a crucial tool for our national security. What's going on with that procedural motion raised by Representative Luna and concerns about Americans' data being swept up in surveillance? We know that you voted no and want warrants attached to the action on collected surveillance. But why did you call out your colleagues like Nancy Mace and suggest they might face losing their committee assignments or membership in the Republican conference for what they were doing with all of this?
Well, that's an issue over the control of the majority over the process of the House. That is the prerogative of the majority collectively, and it needs to be voted that way, and every member of the majority needs to respect that. That's what's broken down in the House Republican Conference over the past year, and that's what's created the chaos that we're now seeing on the floor. Now, that is quite a different subject from the policy votes that we cast once those bills reach the floor. That's the prerogative of every member. It's between himself, his conscience, and his constituency. And that I would defend to the hilt. For example, I voted to put the bill on the floor because that was the will of the conference. I voted against the bill when it reached the floor because that was where all of my judgment and conscience directed. During revolutionary times, we lived under these indiscriminate searches by British officials. John Adams believed that was so resented, he called it the first spark that ignited the American Revolution. Having lived under such a tyranny, the founders protected us with the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment says before authorities can search through our records, they've got to get a warrant from an independent judge by showing probable cause to suspect that we've committed a crime. Because that requirement is not in FISA searches, which are conversations often intercepted between Americans and foreign interests, we don't have those protections. And when you don't have those protections, that power is going to be abused. And the FBI did abuse it. According to a court finding, they abused those powers 278 1,000 times in a single year. They turned those indiscriminate searches against American citizens. They searched for January 6th and Black Lives Matter protesters. They probed political donors. They even pierced congressional offices. That's why the warrant requirement is so essential to the FISA bill, and why I voted against it when that requirement was not included.
Marty, before we run out of time, I have to ask you about another one of your Republican colleagues in the House, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been threatening to oust Speaker Mike Johnson, possibly bringing more instability to a system not fully recovered after what happened to former Speaker McCarthy. Now, she is a strong supporter of former President Trump, but Friday, Trump and Johnson were kind of shoulder to shoulder at Mar-a-Lago, with Trump saying he thinks Johnson's doing a good job. Does this effort by MTG have a place, have any legs? Is there a reason for it? I mean, she's going after him for Johnson being willing to work on some of the major issues we've just been talking about across the aisle to get something done, which is what the American people say they want.
Look, I have my criticisms and reservations about Speaker Mike Johnson. But as I said earlier, this is a decision it needs to be collectively made by the House Republican Conference, not by one or two malcontents joining the Democrats to take control of the floor and the officers that run the floor, starting with the Speaker. What that would do is create enormous instability at this point. And since party disciplines collapsed on the Republican side, no clear path forward to replace him, which would mean indefinite paralysis of the House.
And nobody in the House, the least of all you, and nobody in the voting public really wants to see that happen. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Congressman. We, of course, will be checking back in with you for the rest of what happens with FISA and this funding for Israel, Ukraine, and possibly Taiwan.
Thank you, Sansari. Thanks for having me.